Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're really diving into the deep end, exploring the world of AI, specifically artificial empathy, with this interview you sent us with Carlos Perez.
Oh, this is a good one. Carlos Perez, the author of Artificial Empathy, right? He's a software engineer, been in the trenches for decades. The guy has a real insider's perspective on all this.
Yeah, and that really comes through in the interview. He was talking about how AI would be the most impactful thing in his lifetime way back in like the early days. So he shifted his whole career to focus on it. He even wrote a whole book about artificial intuition back in 2015, and deep learning was barely on anyone's radar back then.
That's wild. You know, one thing that really struck me was how Perez keeps saying he's surprised by how fast AI is advancing.
Yeah, he even uses the phrase time travel at one point. Kind of a bold statement, right?
It is,
Yeah.
especially when he's talking about GPT-3 and GPT-4. Like he's saying these advancements aren't just incremental steps, they're these massive leaps forward.
So what makes this different from the usual tech upgrades? I mean, we see new phones and software updates all the time, but this feels different, right?
It is. What Perez is saying is these AI systems are learning at this crazy accelerated rate. And get this, they're doing it without even being embodied in the physical world.
Okay, hold on, back up. Embodied. What does that even mean in this context?
So think about it. Humans, we learn through our bodies, through physical interaction with the world. These AI systems, they're doing it all in a digital environment, just crunching data,
And they're still outpacing our expectations.
blowing them out of the water. Even the experts, the people who've dedicated their lives to AI, they're being caught off guard by how fast this is all happening.
So then it makes you wonder, what happens when these AI systems DO start interacting with the physical world, through robots or advanced simulations?
Right. Talk about raising the stakes.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole debate comes in, the AI doomers versus the AI optimists. He doesn't seem to be in the doom and gloom camp either.
So where does he land on all this?
Well, he walks a really interesting line. He totally acknowledges the doomers' concerns, especially about the potential risks. But he also says their perspective might be limited by, like, a fixed view of intelligence and power.
So he's saying they're not seeing the bigger picture, that AI could actually push us toward something more positive.
Exactly. He even brings up this fascinating model called spiral dynamics.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I've heard whispers about spiral dynamics, but how does that tie into AI?
Well, spiral dynamics is this model of how human thinking evolves. And Perez is suggesting that AI could be the thing that pushes us toward a more evolved stage of thinking.
So instead of being afraid of AI disrupting everything, he's saying it could actually help us evolve as a species.
Right. But it requires us to let go of some of our old ways of thinking. It's like, think about how we see the world now. Our values, our beliefs, even our fears. Spiral dynamics says that societies go through these different stages, and Perez thinks AI could be the push we need to get to a stage that's more about collaboration, more equitable, focused on everyone's well-being.
Okay, so instead of AI turning into Skynet and taking over the world, he's saying it could actually help us level up as humans.
Exactly. But it's not automatic. He says we got to let go of some old baggage, old ways of thinking to really make that leap.
Right, because if we're stuck in our old ways, we'll probably just end up using AI to, reinforce the same old patterns.
Totally. And that's where artificial empathy comes in. It's like the core of his book. He thinks it's the key to unlocking AI's real potential.
Okay, but empathy, I mean, it's a word we use all the time. But can a machine really understand what it feels like to be human? To feel what we feel?
Right. It seems like a stretch, but Perez really breaks it down. He's not just talking about AI reading our emotions. It's about AI understanding the why behind those emotions. Like all the stuff that goes into it, our experiences, beliefs, even our biases. All that shapes how we see the world.
So it's not just about mimicking, it's about genuinely understanding.
Exactly. He talks about this thing called conversational empathy. AI that can actually talk with us, not just at us.
Hold on, conversational empathy. Like AI that can actually hold up its end of a conversation.
Think of it this way. Imagine an AI that doesn't just spit out facts or follow pre-programmed responses, but actually gets you, understands your hopes, your dreams, even your fears.
Okay, now that's getting kind of deep. But how do we even start to build AI with that kind of understanding? I mean, that's more than just intelligence. That's almost like wisdom.
It is wild. Perez actually lays out this 6-level roadmap for AGI development.
AGI?
Artificial General Intelligence, the whole shebang. And guess what? He says that GPT-4, as mind-blowing as it is only at level 4.
Level 4 to 6. What's level 4?
Interventional causal reasoning. It's a mouthful, right?
Yeah.
Basically, it means GPT-4 can grasp cause and effect, predict what might happen based on different actions.
So, like, it can see the consequences of its actions.
In a way, yeah. But it's the next two levels where it gets really wild. Level 5 is called counterfactual ingenuity.
Counterfactual. Okay, you lost it.
Think of it as the what-if level. It's about AI imagining completely new possibilities, not just analyzing what's already there.
So instead of just working with the data it's given, it can think outside the box, come up with entirely new ideas.
Exactly. Like, imagine AI helping us tackle climate change by coming up with solutions that we, with our limited human brains, haven't even dreamed of.
Okay, that's a serious upgrade. And level 6, that's the big one, right?
Conversational empathy. That's the holy grail. That's where AI doesn't just understand our world, but understands US, our whole messy, complicated human experience.
So we're talking about AI that gets us on a personal level. That's wild. But is it even possible?
Perez seems to think so. But he says it's not just about, like, building a bigger brain, a more powerful computer. It takes a shift in our thinking. He uses this phrase, process-oriented worldview, and it seems to be at the heart of it all.
Process-oriented worldview. Okay, we got to unpack that. What does that even mean?
Well, think about it like this. How do we do education now? We focus on memorizing facts, right? Dates, names, formulas. Like stuffing our brains with information.
Yeah, and then hoping it sticks long enough to pass the test, right?
Exactly. But in a world that's constantly changing, being reshaped by AI, that kind of static knowledge, it's not enough.
So what are we supposed to focus on if the robots are going to be the know-it-alls?
That's the point. A process-oriented worldview is all about adaptability, thinking critically, being able to learn new things quickly, and let go of old ideas that aren't working.
So instead of memorizing facts, it's about understanding how to learn.
Right. Understanding systems, connections, patterns, that kind of stuff.
And AI could actually help us do that.
Exactly. Perez even talks about AI personalizing education, tailoring it to, like, each student's individual needs in a way that humans just can't.
Wow. Now that would have been a game changer back when I was in school. Instead of everyone being crammed into the same box, you get an education that actually works for you.
Totally. But it's not just education. Think about things like government. AI could help us model these complex systems, predict what might happen with different policies. Imagine that.
AI-powered governance. Sounds both amazing and kind of terrifying at the same time. But let's be real for a second. This all sounds super idealistic. What about the downsides, the risks?
Yeah, Perez doesn't ignore the risks. He's a big proponent of ethics in AI development.
Okay, so, like, making sure AI is used for good, that it reflects our values.
Exactly. We have to make sure it doesn't end up concentrating power in the wrong hands, making inequality worse, or being used for, like, straight-up malicious stuff.
So it's not just about building smart AI, it's about building AI that's ethical, responsible, maybe even compassionate.
Right. But how do we even define those things in a way that a machine can understand? That's the real question.
It's a huge challenge, and it's not just on the tech people to figure out either. It's got to be a conversation we're all having, right? Technologists, ethicists, philosophers, policymakers, everyone.
Totally. We all have a stake in this. It's about deciding what kind of future we want to create with AI together.
Wow. Okay, Perez has given us a lot to think about. This whole conversation has been really eye-opening.
Right. He leaves us with this powerful message. The future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's up to us to shape it, make sure it reflects, the best of humanity.
It's a call to action. We got to stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking these big questions. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into artificial empathy. We hope you found this exploration as thought-provoking as we did. Until next time, keep asking those big questions and keep diving deep.